incensed by the impact of crude oil bunkering and artisanal refining activities in Rivers State, Governor Nyesom Wike has launched an all-out war on the culprits. The governor earlier this week ordered the 23 local government area chairmen in the state to destroy all illegal crude oil bunkering and artisanal refinery sites in Rivers State. He also tasked the state police commissioner, Ebuka Friday, to provide adequate security for the local council chairmen as they embark on the mass destruction of illegal sites. Oil theft and illegal refinery operations in Rivers State have been blamed for the pollution of air quality in the state and posing a grave health risk to residents. However, what Rivers State is contending with is just a microcosm of a larger problem in the oil-rich Niger Delta, as oil theft, aging oil and gas infrastructure, and underinvestment are not just taking a toll on the region, but the entire country. Now joining us from Abuja to discuss the enormity of the problem Nigeria is dealing with and the measures government needs to take to end this malaise is Waziri Adio, former Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Initiative, NEITI, and contributing editor to the THISDAY-ARISE Media Group. Good morning, Waziri. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, Doctor.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, let's start from the end of the narrative. I know that when you were Executive Secretary of NEITI, there was this oversight report, and you had a number of recommendations about what should be done. Now, what exactly do we need to do? Because this is a perennial problem, oil theft in the Niger Delta. That's one. And what do you think of the efforts being made by the governor of Rivers State? And where is the federal government in all of this?
Okay, thank you very much. The first thing to say is that, as you mentioned, this is not a new problem. The first time the issue of oil theft was reported as a national issue, at least on record, was in 1988, when the then Minister of Petroleum Resources said that the country was losing up to $10 million, per annum due to oil theft. The problem has escalated since then. In 2019, when I was still in NEITI, we did a report, like you mentioned, that looked at the quantum of oil theft for 10 years between 2009 and 2018. It was established that this was the figures reported by the oil companies, and by the NNPC and by DPR. And it amounted to $41.9 billion for crude theft and product theft for a period of 10 years, an average of $4.1 billion, dollars per year. That's something that poses a lot of risk, not just financially, but also security-wise to the country. And it also has other ramifications, like you said. There are implications, your favorite word, if I can borrow that. There are implications, for the environment. There are implications for security in the Niger Delta. There are implications for livelihood in the Niger Delta. There are implications, for health, and safety, of people. So the problem has always been there, the problem is that most of the attempts that have been put in place to address this problem, they are not enough. They are inadequate. And actually, the problem is getting worse. And it's getting worse at a time when the country is in a very hard place. If the latest figure suggests that Nigeria lost 193 million barrels in 2021, in 11 months in 2021, actually. That's on the average, more than 500,000 barrels per day. We have never had it this bad. The estimates had ranged between 150,000 barrels per day to 400,000 barrels per day. So something really, really is going on. And, what Rivers State is doing is commendable. but we're just scratching the surface. There are so many things that we need to look at. The first thing we need to look at is that for you to solve a problem, you have to understand the state of play and why the status quo is inadequate. And also look at what you need to do differently. What we have tried to do over time was to address this problem by putting in place some laws. The laws are not, adequate. If you have laws that impose sanctions between 100 naira and 5,000 naira, and maybe the vessels that will be seized, they will pay 5 million naira. The incentive for the bad behavior is very low. The enforcement of the law is also, very weak. The surveillance mechanism is very weak. The security apparatus that we've tried to do to attend to this problem is also not clearly focused. What we have used mainly, we have used either pipeline contracts given to some former militants or the JTF. And, the assignment we gave the JTF is largely not just to police crude oil theft, but also for security in the region, to check cultism, to check insurgency in the region, to check kidnapping and all of that. We're not doing enough. We're not doing enough. Also, what we're doing in terms of technology, we're just scratching the surface. So we need to step back, and there's a lot of recommendations out there. When we did this report in 2019, it came out in November 2019, we followed it up a step, by convening a policy dialogue where we brought the different stakeholders. By the way, the National Economic Council set up an ad hoc committee headed by the governor of Edo State. And he was one of the people that we invited to that event. All the players in the oil industry, from the government side, from the company side, all the people involved in security, the JTF, the National Security Advisor, the National Assembly, and all of that. We invited all of them, including the communities, to look at, the problems, and we got further recommendations from them, which we recommended. The point I'm trying to make is that the problem is not new. It's always been there. It's just that it's getting worse. And it's getting worse because we have not done enough to address the problem. The incentive, the kind of money that people are making from crude oil theft is so much that, and the way we are just giving them a slap on the wrist, is going to encourage them to continue to engage in this bad behavior. So now that everybody is talking about this because the country is in dire need of revenue, we're in a situation where what we lost, we estimatedly lost $3.5 billion to crude oil theft in 2021. The total amount of money we made from oil for the federal government in 2020 was about that, was 1.5 trillion naira. So this is a bleeding that the country cannot afford, and this is also something that poses all kind of other challenges to the country.
Well, thank you, Mr. Adio. What exactly can be done to staunch this bleeding? It's actually hemorrhaging, quite frankly, given the magnitude of what we've been discussing. You've talked about attempts that have been made, but fall short. You also mentioned legislative reform, such that the little slaps on the wrist that are encoded in the laws should be strengthened. But what else should we look at, policy-wise, infrastructure-wise, security-wise?
Okay, the first thing is that there are some things that are there that maybe along the line will yield some fruits, that we address this problem, but that's down the line. So let's look at it in terms of what should we do in the immediate, at least to stem, the bleeding, and what do we do, going forward. The first thing we need to do is we need to revamp the security architecture, around policing crude oil assets. By the way, this problem has also lingered because of the scope of the assets that we're talking about. Just to put this in context, the pipelines bearing crude oil, amount to more than 4,000 kilometers. The pipelines bearing refined products more than 5,000 kilometers. We have 258 oil fields. We have more than 2,000 oil well heads. So it's actually something that is quite enormous and difficult to to contain. But we need to revamp the security architecture. That's the first thing. We need to have, and there are two ways to look at this. One is that we need to have a rapid response system, and we need to have a security arrangement that is specifically focused on this problem. The assignment for JTF is too diffused. That you need to have a force that can quickly respond, to the issue of oil theft. You also following with from other countries. We need to look at the issue of having a dedicated force. The security, the SCDC, what's it called? This other one, the
civil defense,
not the police now.
Civil defense.
The civil defense. They were supposed to do this. But they don't have the capacity. You need to have a dedicated force that has the capacity, that has the equipment, all of that to tackle this problem. Some countries have done that, like Mexico. They have a dedicated force, to police their infrastructure. That is one. The second thing is that we need to leverage technology massively. Like I said, this is extensive. And there are all kind of technology out there. What we do now in terms of surveillance is inadequate. There are three ways in which you can do surveillance. There's the visual one, where some that can afford it, they hire helicopters that do some trips. People figure that out. They know when the trips are done. They use the cover of darkness and all of that. So that's the visual one. You also have the exterior one where you mount some devices. People can figure that out. They can dislocate those devices and all of that. But there are things that we can do in terms of deploying drones. In terms of having some leak detection technology that immediately there's sabotage, there's break into the pipelines, you can shut down the flow of oil, and also you can also use technology for molecular fingerprinting of the crude oil, so that the same kind of process that people have for blood diamonds, we can have that, for stolen crude. So that, so that is that. We also need to have some kind of stake for the communities. There's a lot of collusion that is going on, sometimes, sadly to say, even with our security forces, and even with some of the operators in the sector. So we need to have a way of factoring in the interests of the communities. They are also victims, by the way. But we need to have a way in which, and this is one of the things that will come on stream shortly with the host community fund. If you are able to structure that in such a way that there's an incentive for the communities to police the asset, the money that will go into the fund will be a function of how secure the assets, the kind of oil not just produced within their domain, but also the kind of oil that can be guaranteed within their domain. So that's also something that will be effective. Okay. Nigeria needs to, this is something that has a global implication. There's a market for stolen oil. And we need to have a situation where we can mobilize the international community. There's no country in the world that's suffering from, by the way, it's not just a Nigerian problem, but there's no country in the world that's suffering from crude theft to the level that Nigeria is suffering from it. So Nigeria needs to lead a diplomatic offensive to get the entire world, to have a stake in addressing this. And there's a way in which you can do this. We're already engaged in many multilateral, multi-stakeholder initiatives like OGP, like NEITI, and also we have platforms like the United Nations. But we need to let countries know that they also have a stake in this. Imagine if $4.2 billion, fall into the hand of the wrong people. And all these terrorist groups, we need to link it to all these other issues about national security, about international security. All these terrorist groups also, they're implicated in resource theft, because that's one of the ways in which they can finance their operations. So we need to let other countries know that this is not just the problem of Nigeria. this is the problem for the whole world. Once those people have access to vital resources, even if not in the Niger Delta, by the time there's oil in the north now, that also opens up another frontier there.
Okay, so I mean, I was really excited when you talked about the idea of sort of like a Kimberley process for crude oil. Have you tried sharing that idea, maybe through the Ministry of Petroleum Resources with OPEC? Because somebody will have thought that that's why you have a cartel, So somebody should be able to say, okay, this is what OPEC produces, and if this is coming from an OPEC producing nation and doesn't have the stamp of OPEC sort of, then it should be null and void. And I also want to talk about the ecosystem of oil theft. And that is what shocks me the most. Do you think we have the temerity to fight the ecosystem, which in some cases might involve highly placed people in the country? Recently, there was a case, in court that after about 5 years, the person was apprehended for oil theft and the likes. I think they said they should just pay a paltry sum of 2,000 naira in fine or something. So there's an ecosystem. You talked about the NSCDC. There was collaboration. There's an ecosystem. Are we ready to bring down people that perpetrate oil theft, no matter how highly placed they are? Are we really ready, or are we just being lip service to it?
Okay, like I said, this is not a new problem. It's always been there, and the volumes keep going up and down, depending on what's happening at different times. The reason why we're talking about it now is that we're very pressed, and we need all the money that we can get, And, ADB, that we're even struggling to meet our OPEC quota of 1.6, million barrels per day because of this theft. And one of the reasons why, these major international oil companies are divesting, especially from onshore, is because of this theft. They produce, they lose most of the production, and all of that. So the incentive for them. And also, it also makes Nigeria very uncompetitive. They would rather go where, they don't have to incur all this cost. So yes, talk about the ecosystem. There was a time, this would be like around 2014, I was part of a THISDAY team that went to meet with people at defense headquarters, and we're talking about Boko Haram and some other things, And the chief of defense staff then said something very instructive. And, because the point that was put to him was that, why are you not giving the troops enough resources, to fight? And he said, people should make up their mind whether they want to fight or not. That when you post them to Boko Haram, to the northeast, they ask for deployment for them to be deployed elsewhere. When you post them to Niger Delta, they go and do Thanksgiving. And that point in time, I was not even native, but at that time it struck me that even for our security forces, they are doing enormous work, and we should, celebrate the sacrifice that they are making on behalf of all of us. But even within them, there's some kind of collusion going on. The ecosystem, like you mentioned, so many highly placed individuals are implicated, and we're not talking of. Because when you talk about, what's it called, illegal refineries, that's the list of what you're talking about. For the volume we are talking about, you are talking about theft at almost industrial level. It's not the artisanal refineries that will be sucking out 500,000 barrels per day from our production. So there's something that is going on there, and there's stealing that is happening almost in plain sight. So the question is that, is there the will to address this problem? I don't think that government doesn't know about what is going on, but sometimes maybe it's about, okay, maybe this is a small price you need to pay to keep the peace or to keep the oil flowing, or to keep, to just ensure stability. So it comes back to the issue of will. All the problem is well known. The reason why it's lingering is well known. All the solutions are on the table. Other solutions can be advanced. By the way, NEC set up an ad hoc committee. And when we finish the NEITI policy dialogue that I told you about, we annexed all the contributions including our paper and other contributions made by other parties, and we put everything together. We did an executive summary of that, and we sent it to everybody that should matter. And I'm not aware that anything was done. Maybe something was done that was in the public domain, but we cannot afford this, not just because that we need all the money that we can get, but also that this poses a present and real danger, to lives, to livelihoods, to the environment, and to the security of our country. In terms of OPEC and the international, dimension of focusing the mind, and tools of international diplomacy on addressing this problem. Like I said, Nigeria has the incentive, and has all the need to champion this. Everybody is not affected the same way. Since you are feeling the pinch, and everybody is feeling the pinch in Nigeria now, it's not just the government at all levels, but also the money that government is not making is money that cannot be invested in things that matter to the Nigerian people, right? And also, it's not just that. When some of this vandalism and other things take place, you also have to spend money to repair, and all of that, So we're losing on different fronts. So we have all the reasons to champion this and to lobby people and to not just go to them and tell them that you need to help us. No, we need to invest them in the outcome. We need to let them know that this is also a risk to you. If Boko Haram, ISWAP, Al-Qaeda affiliates and all of that, if they are able to lay their hands on these resources, that means they will get more harms and they will put the people at risk across the world. So it's our responsibility because we have the owners, as they say, and we have the locus, and we have all the incentive to move this. We shouldn't think that people will do it just because of us or because they love us or because of God. We need to move this. We need to put all the resources that we have at the back of this.
Okay, I get that point that you are making. But if we go back to the 2019 report by NEITI, two specific recommendations there about genetic fingerprinting of crude oil, and also in another paragraph, the report is calling for strong partnerships. But we've talked about collusion inside Nigeria in many cases. What is the nature of the international collusion that is involved in this oil theft, if there is? And does Nigeria have the capacity to address that? The second point is about the ownership of oil. Now this is politics. President Olusegun Obasanjo said recently that crude oil in Nigeria does not belong to the oil-bearing communities, that it belongs to Nigeria. It was countered by groups from the Niger Delta, by Chief E.K. Clark, by Obong Victor Atta, who was on this program. But you were in charge of NEITI. Who owns Nigerian oil, if I may ask you? Because you are somebody who had oversight functions over aspects of that in terms of transparency.
Okay, let me start with the first one. In terms of collusion, there's some level of collusion across the board. I have a feeling there is. It's not just a feeling. In 2016, Nigeria filed a case in court and took some countries to court that between 2011 and 2014, there was a difference amounting to the tune of $12.7 billion in terms of the oil declared lifted from Nigeria and oil declared lifted from Nigeria outside of Nigeria. So when you take what is declared when the ships leave Nigeria, and when they get to their port of destination and they say, oh, this is oil we're bringing from Nigeria, over a period of 4 or 5 years, there was a difference worth $12.7 billion dollars. So this is not just in the realm of speculation now. This is a case that's in court. So there's some kind of collusion going on there that we need to, not just local, but there's also an international dimension. Like I also said, yes, there's some stuff going on at the artisanal retail level, but there's the wholesale, almost industrial scale level that, if you are talking about, 300,000 barrels per day, 400,000 barrels per day, 500,000 barrels per day. By the way, even when we produce 2.5 million barrels per day, 500,000 barrels per day, that's 20% of our daily production. Our OPEC production quota of 1.6 million barrels per day, 500,000 barrels per day, that's about 33%. So this is massive, and like I said, it's not just something happening with some people just cracking, the pipelines and siphoning some things and doing some bush refining, and stuff like that, and disturbing the peace, and the health and the environment in rivers and other places. It's something more sinister is going on. There are many things that Nigeria will need to do. Where we have the evidence, we need to prosecute and prosecute diligently. But we also need to have a process for gathering evidence. And that's where this issue of genetic fingerprinting, and that's where the issue of having like a Kimberley process for the oil, this thing that you can say, you can have molecular, genetical, this thing that you can identify oil from different places, and you can identify oil that is stolen. And we need to lead this initiative because no other country is hemorrhaging as much as we are, and no other country is at risk as much as we are. So that's in terms of that. In terms of the ownership of oil, I don't want to be drawn into the politics of things, but let's look at it this way. If you go by our constitution, what former President Obasanjo or President Obasanjo said is right. We can look at things as they are. We can look at things as we want them to be. In terms of the way we want things to be, in terms of normative approach to things, maybe oil should belong to the people who have the oil in their backyard. But if you are in a federation and you are in a Nigerian federation with the current constitution that we have, the oil and the other natural resources belong to the federal government, to the federation rather. So that's the thing. And if people have issues with that, and maybe there are legitimate grounds to have issues with that, those are issues that can be addressed, in terms of constitutional review, and other things. But in terms of the state of play today, I don't think it's off the mark.
Very good diplomatic answer, Waziri. Thank you for that.
Well, I want to talk about the Kimberley process and how it came about to remove, conflict diamonds from the global supply. You raised a really important point about illicit financial flows out of Africa. The Western world is generally a lot more comfortable pointing the finger about rampant corruption in Africa, but is hesitant to point the finger to their part and the role that they play. What process should be established? Because the Kimberley process took years and bloodshed, the death and mutilation of thousands before people came to the table in Kimberley, South Africa. What do you think should be the precise roadmap? Because it does take everybody sitting at the table.
Yeah, you see, the Nigeria has been talking about this on and off. The thing about us as a country is that when times are good, we just get comfortable and we just move on. If oil were to be selling at $100 per barrel and we are pumping, 2 million, 2.2 million, 2.5 million barrels per day, everybody will be okay. All these issues that we're talking about now, about crude theft, about subsidy and all of that, they will really figure in our view. In our horizon. So, but now is a good time is a good time to start the process. You have to have the stamina, and you have to put forward the proper arguments. Like you said, nobody, there are interest groups that benefit from this in those countries that you mentioned, and they won't just raise up their hands and say, okay, yes, we've been doing bad things, so let's move on to other things. So their entrenched interest is our own responsibility to do our proper mapping at the global stage and identify the allies that we need to bring on board, identify the compelling arguments that we need to make, and find a way of going about it. Yes, it doesn't have to resort to the kind of what we saw in Sierra Leone and Liberia, with blood diamonds. But who says that is not already happening in Nigeria? Who says, because, resource theft, resource co-option is highly implicated in most of these conflicts that you see in different parts of the world, especially in our part of the world. So it's not just for economic reasons, and we're in dire straits now. And it will take a while, to really get out of that. But beyond that, it's also an existential issue for us. We don't have enough money. Our livelihood is at stake. Our commitment to net zero is at stake. Our environment is at stake. And our security is at stake. So we are the ones that would need to lead the initiative on this, and we need to have a very strategic and sustained way of going about it. Nobody owes anybody anything, and we're not the only ones producing oil. Even the Saudi Arabia that is pumping 9 million barrels or more, they are not facing this problem. Somebody mentioned, I think Hosseini mentioned OPEC. Why should OPEC take this up if the other members of OPEC are not feeling the pinch? So we are feeling the pinch, so it's our responsibility to lead the guide on this. And we shouldn't go about it with the mindset that once we mention it, then everybody will jump on board. No, it will take a while. And we need to learn from other processes that people have put in place over time, and all the gains and setbacks that people have made in initiatives like this. And like I said, there are things that we can follow. We're members of the EITI. We're a member of our countries is a member of OGP. We're a member of the UN. There are other platforms that we can also work on to see how we can do this. But in the interim, there are some immediate steps we need to take. Okay. If in 2019 Nigeria lost 42 million barrels. We don't have the figure for 2020 now yet, but we have the figure for 2021. Okay. 193 million barrels. Okay. That's massive.
All right. I mean, great insights you shared, but I just quickly want to narrow this down to refined oil theft, which is a big problem. So the argument of labor as regards the subsidy debate that is going on, and please answer this briefly, is the fact that, we say we need about less than 50 million liters per day, but times 2 of that amount is being shipped out of this country, to other neighboring West African countries. So labor keeps arguing, how do we block those leakage? How do we build refineries? And that's why they're saying, oh, this whole subsidy thing is just but a fraud, because that amount is fretted away, is shipped away to other parts of the country. So let's talk about that a little bit, briefly.
Okay, before we move to that, let me also say that it's not just crude oil that is being stolen. Refined products is also being stolen. So we all the refined products, petrol, diesel, kerosene, also being stolen. I just need to say that, in terms of subsidy, very interesting debate. This is also an issue that has been on for some time. And at some point, some of us actually thought subsidy was history. The arguments that are being made are not new. They are arguments that everybody is familiar with. But let's look at it this way. once you create the incentive for certain things to happen, they will happen. If you sell refined products at a price that's a fraction of what you sell the same products in neighboring countries, you have created incentive, for people to smuggle. And, don't forget that, we have our border is long and porous. Even if you line up all the borders that we have with all the various countries, with all the security forces that we have, not just custom now, right? You don't have enough. Beyond that, you have also created an incentive for collusion. And once people have the reason to collude, they will collude. So the thing to do is not to, we cannot deny, you see, we know how much oil is selling for now. We know how much is the landing cost per liter. We know that we're importing most of the refined products that we consume, right? So the fact that we're selling below landing cost is not in doubt. Yes, if we do local refinery, by the time the refineries, by Dangote and other ones come on board, that will address the issue of supply, but it will not address the issue of pricing. So we need to fix this issue of pricing. And if the concerns that we have is about people who will be negatively impacted, and by the way, there will be people who will be negatively impacted, especially poor people, we should acknowledge that. And we should find a way of addressing the areas in which they will be impacted. We know that poor people spend a disproportionate amount of their income on transportation, on feeding, on food, and accommodation. So if you can find a way of addressing that,
thank you.
And by the way, apart from Abuja, Port Harcourt, Lagos, and a few places, in both of the parts of the country, people are not buying this fuel. Please, you can go and find out.
Well, thank you, Waziri.
Don't even go too far. Don't even send your correspondence. MBS publishes how much people, buy refined products across the country.
Thank you very much, Waziri Adio, for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much,
on
Dr.
the Morning
Abachi.
Show. Thank you very much indeed.